Do you think everybody who knows you, who really knows you, is from like Block Island, from Rhode Island, understands this comedy thing, or are they confused by it?
Anyone who really knows me,
Yeah.
they know what day it is in my world. And listen, comedy's like anything else. It's one day I could wake up and not want to do it. And I'm giving myself the freedom to say, hey, I'm not locked into comedy.
But every day you wake up and you want to do it.
Every day I want to do it. And every night I go to bed and I go over every night I go to bed. Well, here's where my career's at. Yeah. I'm a dreamer. Yeah. So every night I go to bed and I put on Every Day is a Winding Road.
Of all songs, that's what you go with.
And then I think of me walking into the Providence Performing Arts Center to all my family and friends in Providence to that song. And I want my people that are in recovery that have 1 day to 10 years over on the left. I want all my friends that are still using drugs and alcohol. I want them on my right. And every day is a winding road as I approach the stage. And I tell the guys on the left, stay away from the guys on the right. And the guys on the right, stay away from the guys on the left. And if you both want to do a switch, one at a time. We'll get one sober, one back on, one back off. What's happening, guys? Welcome back to Rhode Island Red. And remember, I used to smoke crack. But not anymore. Why? Because of 5-Hour Energy. It fixes tired fast. Get off the crack. Get on 5-Hour Energy.
All right, well, we're going to get into it. We're getting into the comedy. So 95, 96, you finally let go of the crack. That's out of your life. And it took that experience of, being in front of all these people, you're naked, you're at this low point.
And this was one of 100 situations that just was another cherry on. This was the cherry on the top.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, this felt like the one that I'm not going to touch that anymore. I mean, sobriety didn't happen for years after that.
Yeah, like I got off the crack, but I still dabbled with drinking and thought I could drink. And once I started drinking, I wanted to do blow. And then I would do little bumps of blow and I would just do little bumps and drink all night and do little bumps. And I managed that till the summer of 2002.
Yeah.
So I went from 95 to 2002 being Rhode Island sober. That means doing bumps and drinking.
Yeah.
No crack.
I mean, what were you doing during that time for most of that?
Working, hustling, working, dealing weed, running the bars.
Yeah. What were you were running Elizabeth?
Running Elizabeth.
What else were you running?
Shooters.
Yeah. So you were running these clubs at the bars and
and I ran this other place called Club Shalimar. I opened this club for the Iamundi brothers who were,
Yeah.
Hey guys. Won't get any further on that.
Yeah, but I bet overall you're staying out of trouble.
Overall.
Yeah.
Still doing a little bump and drinking.
Yeah, but you were able to get it down to that.
Yeah, I was doing it, and I wasn't doing it every night. I was really, really trying to not fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, how was your relationship with your mom and your family by
well,
this
it
point?
started to get bad again in, let's say, 2000. In 2000, I was showing up to work drunk. I had an incident where I showed up to work to open my place, and I was drinking during the day. I opened up my place at 4, got the bar open and all the tables ready, and said, let me just go down the street to Nobody's. Like, these are the decisions after a few, like, you know what I mean? I got a bar, I got a business to run. I just was so irresponsible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Unfathomable, as Buddy, quote unquote, Buddy Cianci would be like, that's unfathomably stupid. Like, you're just unfathomable. Like, I would, So I leave the bar wide open and I go over to Nobody's and I order a cup. I suck down 3 Stolios and orange juices doubles. I just suck them down and I black right out. Within 5 minutes, I'm blacked out. I'm in the parking lot. They didn't even know that the guy who owned the bar is a friend of mine. I'm in the parking lot, and I guess I almost got hit by a car. Providence police come. Apparently, I didn't know these guys. They took me to the hospital, and because when they got me to the hospital, I tried to run away, so they put me in 4-point restraints in the hospital. So needless to say, things were getting bad again. They were escalating. The drinking was getting more. The coke was going down, but I couldn't handle booze. I'd black out. So they put me in 4-point restraints, and my mother, I remember looking like this. I remember looking like this and seeing my mother's face in the window. Oh, my God. And she left. And the next face I saw in that window was Buddy Cianci.
The mayor.
The mayor.
Yeah.
And he saved me. He broke me out of a mental, and the cops he brought with him, the cops, the orderly said, well, you guys can't break him out. He's been signed into a kind of a 5150. Yeah. And Buddy ordered the police to fucking grab the key from the orderly, like restrain the orderly, get the key, open the door, take the 4-point restraints, and they walked me out. And Buddy walked me out with his arm over my shoulder, and my mother was there too.
Yeah.
My mother was on the outside.
Yeah. So you were.
So now we're getting closer to 2002.
But it was escalating. So after 95, 96, you stopped the crack, and you were kind of keeping it together. But then the drinking started ramping up.
Yeah, I owned a bar. I'm running bars. I'm drinking. I'm still doing bumps. I'm dealing a ton of weed. I'm corrupting a couple of people. One who went to jail never said my name. Thank you. You know who you are. He did 2 years. Most fucking kid you would think would flip on you. The kid did 2 years. Didn't say a word. So things were getting bad, but because the money from weed and the excess and more, it was, my connections weren't helping me. They were hurting me, because if I got caught, I'd get off. Everything was a slap on the wrist. I was never facing consequences.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways that obviously enabled you in a lot of ways, right?
Yes.
Do you think you would have been better off if you had to do a little bit of
No,
time?
I think they wanted to keep me out of the system, and they knew if I got into the system like other people like me, it was over. So they did everything they could to keep me out of the system. Yeah. So all the political connections and, people who were remember, I used to serve judges. I used to wait on judges. I wasn't always a bad, nutbag. I always could hold it together where I would, I had a lot of relationships with people.
No, and a lot of people liked you,
I was very likable.
Yeah. So it's kind of like how you are now. You're likable now, Sean. A lot of people really like you, but that's what. So you were kind of going in and out of these
I like
states.
the ones who don't like me.
Yeah, there's some of those too, but
I like those.
Yeah, those, I know exactly what you mean.
Two man enter, one man leave.
But basically, that's what it was. It was building up. So when did sobriety start? What finally tipped that over? What got you there?
Okay, so we're gonna fast forward to the summer of 2002, where I'm working for Mike Finnemore. And I'm running Captain Nick's. I'm in charge of the door and charging at the door, meaning very lucrative situation at the door. And I bartended a couple of nights a week. So I was the floor manager and the door manager, and we had bands every night. So this summer I started getting back into the old shenanigans where the coke dealing. Now all of these summers I'm dealing blow and weed on Block Island. So 2002 comes around, I move back to Block Island. I take this job with Finnemore at Captain Nick's Rock and Roll Bar that I had been working since Captain Nick days. And he says, you take the door, run the door, all the money coming through the door. And I start doing blow and drinking again on Block Island like a lot. Now I'm on a roll. Now it's July 4th and we do a float. And I knew July 4th, I was pouring coke, we had been working on the float all night, and I was just pouring coke in front of everybody, to keep them working on the float. And, Bridget, who was running the float, she was all like, what are you doing? You can't. And I was just out of control. I was just blurring the lines left and right, not caring about the law. I didn't give a shit. I just was going to party the way I wanted to. And, that whole week, all the way to the 12th of July, where I had taken a couple of days off I was supposed to take a few days off to get my head together. Instead, I went out drinking again. and went on another bender. Went back to Captain Nick's in the middle of the bender in a blackout. Did something really stupid on the dance floor, meaning I was doing this Mick Jagger move, stupid fucking situation. I was charged with 2 counts of sexual assault, 2nd degree, for, doing a dance move where I flipped this girl's boobie on the dance floor. And I was in the fucking blackout, and the report came out, the grand jury report was like I had did something else, but there were a lot of witnesses in there that night that it never went through the grand jury. So I was subsequently not charged at the end of the day. But to back up, when the incident happened, I was being charged. And Billy McComb, thank you very much for not perp walking me on the Block Island boat and allowing me to show up to court on my own with my attorney on the morning of July 12th, 2002, to the courthouse. And I go to face these charges. So I leave Block Island after partying like a rock star for 3 months, and I'm shaking because I'm detoxing from booze. And I got to show up in court. My lawyer, very good lawyer, was so mad at me. My mother was so mad. Everyone was like, they didn't even know if they wanted to help me because it was serious. The charges were serious. Before I say this, there was once again, I was given another break. I went in front of the judge. The judge looked at me and said, 2 counts, 2nd degree sexual assault, $50,000 surety bail on each count. So that was $100,000 to get out of jail. Surety bail. I was not getting out without $100,000 being brought to the court's office or signing over property or whatever. Let's make a fact that I did not have anything near $100,000. I had maybe 20 if I was lucky, if I scraped everything together at this time in my life. I go to, they bring me down, and as soon as the judge says 2 counts, surety bail, bailiff grabs me and brings me down to the courthouse. And where I sat down in the dungeon of the courthouse, knowing the party was completely over and whatever I had done the night before, intentional or not intentional, I was in a lot of fucking trouble. And I was on my way to the ACI. And thank God I had connections up there because I'm already thinking I'm going to need protection up at the ACI. And thank God I had the people in place up there if I did end up there.
So what's the ACI? That's prison?
Adult Corrections Facility
okay.
in Cranston, Rhode Island. It's our prison.
Yeah.
And so I'm down there for about an hour waiting to get transported to the ACI. Now a bailiff comes down and he says, "You okay?" And I'm like, I was crying and, being a fucking pussy and, because it was over. And the judge shows up and the bailiff opens the door and the judge, my mom, and my lawyer come into where I'm sitting. And the judge says to me, my lawyer says to the judge, we're not representing Sean, and Mrs. Ruth Mahoney's not backing him in any way. So the judge says, listen, and he had every right to do this. He changed his verdict in the cell. And he said, listen, I'm going to give you one option. And my mother's like, don't give him anything. And my lawyer who's supposed to be representing me had it with me. Had it. He's like, you're done with me. You're done with your mother. You're fucking done. This has been going on too long. All this shit's been going on way too long. So the judge looks at me and says, I'm going to give you one shot. And here's the shot. I'm going to let you out on $5,000 personal recognizance until the grand jury comes back with whatever they're going to come back with. Thank God they came back not guilty. So when it came back not guilty, the judge said, here's the deal. No matter what happens with the grand jury, guilty or not, or whatever, you are under my supervision. I'm going to be watching you like an eagle in the sky. If I find you drinking, if I find you're acting up, if I find you're causing your mother problems, if I find anything that's against the grain of the break I'm giving you, I'm going to lock you up for 1 year. And that's just going to be the beginning. And then you're going to have a lifetime of being in the system. So you've got one fucking last shot. And I left that prison on 5,000 personal recognizance, and I began the transformation of my life.
And you've basically been sober since then.
I drank once in Vegas with my fiance, bad move after 6 years.
Yeah.
One night, and it was a stupid move. And then I got right back on and proceeded.
How long did it take you to feel even remotely normal?
5 years.
It took 5. So for 5 years, what was that like? Whenever you had a bad day, you had
a bad day?
Yeah.
Well, my mom's not alive to tell you, but I smashed 14 antique chairs in my home that were around a table that one day, every week, I'd freak out and grab one of these chairs and just smash the fucking shit out of it in the middle of the kitchen. Chair was worth, and my poor mother would just be watching me and be like, it was a fucking tough, it was tough. Nobody wanted to see me succeed again. I'd been given too many breaks. But, I prevailed. I was determined, like I am determined now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have when I do put my mind to something and put my energies towards it, I don't do things half-ass.
Yeah, you throw yourself into it.
I do pour myself in. I mean, I may not do it all perfectly.
Yeah.
Like, writing jokes. Everyone knows I'm not a big one-liner guy, but I figure it out.
Yeah. No, I mean, from the perspective, we're probably going to transition into comedy because comedy has been a big part of this transformation, from everything we've talked about with, addiction and all these things coming out of that. And then there's this redemption, and did you ever expect that comedy would be part of that,
If you told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting with Mark Kraus in Santa Monica telling my story of the most shameful shit a man could probably say, knowing that everyone who didn't get the breaks are going to be like, that fucking piece of shit. You know what I mean?
And that what actually connected us was fourth wall.
Fourth wall, yeah.
Comedy.
Yeah, comedy. Listen, I've learned... I play a selfish, unique game here. I've learned how to reintegrate myself into society with the help of fourth wall. Because when I started comedy, I had a very small group of people in my life. I had gotten a divorce. I wasn't bringing anyone into my life, not a friend. I had 3 people that I counted on, and that was it. And now I have a group of friends. I have real friends, like a friend, like I've created this
community, right?
And people have accepted me for my faults. They've accepted me for being a scumbag. They've accepted me for being who I am.
Yeah.
But,
part of that is the honesty, I think when you're able to show people who you really are, people connect to that. There's a universal thing to that. People respect that. They admire that.
I will say this. Before my first year, I came back. I started at Hollywood Comedy. Found my way to fourth wall. But when I went back to Block Island, I was like, there had been some they were like, whoa, Sean I had met God or something. When I came back to Block Island, I found comedy. I'm telling everyone, they're like, okay, Sean, you found comedy. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I found comedy. And they couldn't get it. I had to get it.
So the period from 2002, when did you actually start comedy? But before you get into that, what were you doing after you hit it took 5 years, right? It took 5 years for you to feel normal again.
Yeah.
And it was a rough to get to that point.
Yeah.
But even before we get into that, we'll eventually get to how you finally found your way into comedy. But tell us a little bit about that first 5 years. Did you see... How close did you get to breaking your sobriety? Were there rough patches, rough moments?
Yeah, there were rough patches, but but for the grace of God, the desire for coke and the desire for booze, it was almost like it's almost like I had paid my dues. Yeah. And one day God was like, it's over. Yeah. And I can't express to you, it was like I had a knee problem 3 years ago. My knee was just giving me such a hard time. And one day, after 2 years of this knee problem, it went away. But for the grace of God, I must have done something right along the journey. I don't know what, because he lifted the desire, and the light hit me. My mom was like, even my mom knew. Like when I left that jail cell, my mom knew. She's like, thank God. Like there was this relief of like, he's got it. He's like, well, it was almost as known as everything else I talked about. It just fell into place where I was done.
Yeah.
I was done, and God had lifted it. It wasn't just me. It was like I needed God, and I needed help from a higher power, something that was way stronger than me, because my actions, my decisions weren't working. Yeah. So I needed somebody higher than me, a power, a spirit, whatever it was, but it found me. And when it did, I knew the deal. It was like making a deal with the devil. I had danced with the devil. Meaning I had to break up with the devil. And that day, God was like, I got you back. And now you're going to work for me. And it was like, you hear these preachers talk about, I work for God. Yeah, it was kind of like, here's the deal. This is a nonverbal communication. You just know that you owe. I'm going to lift this fucking nightmare off of you. But it was like a trade-off that I knew that I had to give back, that what had been freely given to me. You know? So I had to give it back. So I always try. If anyone has a problem with alcohol or drugs or anything, I'm always available to, bounce something off,
Well, so what were you doing, like, basically up until you started comedy? Right before, because I'm really interested in hearing about...
Right before, yeah. Okay, so I ended up going from, 2002, just running businesses and being a good boy. I was just being a good boy. And I ended up meeting a girl named Amanda Dauber, who went to Rhode Island School of Design. Really the most talented girl I've ever dated. Painter, just the most talented. Was dating her. My mom introduced me to her. So there was still a lot to go through. And my mom introduced me because she thought this girl was going to be sober, and she ended up not being sober. And it was a long journey with her and me not drinking and her drinking. And she ended up committing suicide over my kitchen table.
Jeez.
So it was another, what I mean? I ended up dating girls I shouldn't have been dating. I always dated younger women. You know what I mean? And that wasn't always a smart move. And I dated Amanda. Poor Amanda just had a lot of mental issues. And so I got through that. 2 years go by, more just taking care of business. Yeah. And then I meet my wife.
Yeah.
I just come home from Breckenridge, Colorado. I was skiing. And then my manager was like, hey, that girl you set up for an interview is here. And I just got back. And for some reason, I just said, well, tell my future wife I'm going to be late. Yeah. This is a girl who comes in for a job. She doesn't even know me. I just said, tell my future wife I'm going to be late.
Where was this for? Like, where was the...
She was coming in for a waitressing job.
Where?
At Elizabeth.
Oh, at Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so I go down there.
Yeah.
And this beautiful girl sitting at the bar, just everything that I love, just... And I looked at her and I said, hi, I'm Sean. She's like, hey, I'm Erica. I said, Erica, listen, I really don't need a waitress. I said, I need a partner in this whole world. And I said, you look like the perfect candidate. And I said, if you're interested, I'll pay you for your time for coming down here, but I'd really like to take you out to dinner. And I took her right from there to Camille's Roman Garden, where after that dinner, we never left each other's side, and I married her.
How'd you end up in L.A.? Because I know that you
Well,
both...
I've been coming back and forth to L.A.
Yeah. So
I've always been, like, during that time of sobriety, I was in and out of New York with house productions with Brooke Thomas and, in and out of L.A. trying to do auditions and do pilot season and all that.
So you wanted to be an actor originally?
Yeah, I wanted to be an actor. And I also made films. I also made the film Goodbye High about my high school. Really good redemption thing. I started the film club at the high school. I also did the movie Island Bound, which did really well. Then I did This Is Now, 3 independent films I did right in a row. So that's what I did with my sobriety. I put all that energy into making film.
So this was all the way up until like what year?
Up until 2000, 12 or something when I met my wife. Like I stopped making films. I was going to Sundance every year in 05, 06, 07.
Yeah.
And when I met my wife, I backed off of filmmaking, and all I did was try to create a family and a home. And we had dachshunds, and we had cats, and we had a Jack Russell. So I had fallen into the marriage life and keeping up with the Joneses, I guess.
At a certain point, you both came to LA, though, right? You were living together out here?
Well, at a certain point, I had to make a decision. Providence was going through a really tough, after the financial crisis, it really became difficult.
Yeah.
And I had a legal disagreement with the school that was renting us the space.
Yeah.
And it worked in my favor, where I got to get out of there. And I went to Colorado for a couple of years with her and opened a business, and then ended up back in LA. That was the goal, to get to LA.
Yeah. What kind of business was it?
Mulch, and I had the Mulch Man business, and I had...
How do you get into that? How do you...
Listen.
You just find things,
Well, I knew a guy when I was doing this other stuff. This guy had like acres of mulch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, how much for the mulch? And he's like, it's free.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I just got the truck and put aside the Mulch Man and started getting these Mexicans. And I was like, every time I saw a Mexican, I'm like, hey, the Mulch Man.
Yeah.
$100 a load. I'll bring it and drop it for 100.
Wow.
So I was selling mulch.
Yeah.
And just staying busy and living life, and, kind of kicking back a little bit, and just being married, and, and trying to adjust for being away from the power vacuum of Rhode Island. You know what I mean? I was on my own, without connections, they wanted me to stay. And I said, I can't. I have to know if I can make it on my own without all of this fucking cushy life, all of these cushy connections. So I went to Denver, and I wanted to know could I start a business at 50 years old? Could I, and I went I hit the ground running. I was making $2,000 a week before I knew it.
And then you eventually got to LA?
Yeah, I stayed in Colorado for a while, sold the mulch business to a Mexican, and a house cleaning, a clear out house to his buddy.
Yeah.
And then we went to California.
Yeah. Yeah. You and your wife?
Me and my wife, Erica, when we got here.
Yeah.
My wife started to drink more. And obviously, there's two sides to every story. Obviously, I'm not the easiest guy to live with. If I don't drink and you're drinking, needless to say, I was turning into a real fucking prick, because I didn't want to deal with it no more. And the more I tried to get her to stop drinking, the more resentment, like I had played this game from the other side. So she ended up resenting me, and it ended bad.
Yeah.
It ended really bad.
So how long were you married for before?
6 years.
Yeah.
Well, I was with her for 6, married 4.
And then did you go back to Rhode Island after that, or just stay in LA?
Yeah, so I got a divorce. I had to separate from her and send her on her way. And then I stayed in Hollywood for a couple more months, and I was really broken up. And it was the first time I had thought about drinking, because I kept looking down at Playboy liquors. And I said, what the fuck am I doing here? I got to get out of here. I got to go home and reset. I mean, I could have stayed in Hollywood and fought it out, but I wasn't in the right mind. I knew God was like, we got to figure this out. So I went back to Rhode Island after COVID. COVID was just coming, COVID was just halfway through COVID. And my boss, Mike Finnemore, who worked on Block Island, remember, everything's shut down. No one's making money. Restaurants, industry, everything's done. So Block Island was the only beaches open in New England, all the way up to the East Coast.
Yeah.
So I just started renting mopeds with Mike Finnemore and using the stage that he gave me for stand-up comedy.
So that's how it really started.
It really started that my comedy career kind of showed its head by me doing this job with mopeds for Mike Finnemore.
Yeah.
And I would just sit out there and then we'd rent out the mopeds by 10 a.m. So for the rest of the day, I'm just on this stage running bits by people, making money. They were tipping me. I'd be doing small parties. And it just escalated where I started Block Island Comedy.
And you got a little PA system set up? Or
No,
how
I just do it stand up, hand-to-hand combat on the stage with just my voice.
Yeah.
No microphone.
And then that's how it started.
That's literally how it started.
And then how do you go from that to coming out back to LA?
Well, so I did this job on Block Island with Mike in the mopeds for 3 years. And I was staying on Block Island in the winter because I had created this new life and I loved the community and I fell back in love with Block Island and everyone there. And my mom was there and I got to spend this quality time with my mom. My mom didn't like my wife. Basically because she just didn't like her. And so my mom says to me, Sean, why don't she summons me to Mahoney's Clothier, which was a clothing store in Block Island that we owned.
That was her shop?
It was my brother Jay's and hers. So I'm in the middle of a day of renovating hotel rooms and being a part of Mike's operation, which he has 6 hotels and a lot of stuff. So she summons me and says, hey, I want you to it's over. COVID's over. I just talked she had friends. My mother was friends with Ellen DeGeneres, a few other. My mother had a lot of contacts. She's like, I heard Hollywood's back open. She gives me this $6,000 check, which was odd. Why it was $6,000, I have no idea. And she knew I didn't need the money because I'd been working and saving money and I just had plenty of dough. And she's like, take this check. It's almost like she knew. And go to LA and try comedy. I'm like, Mom, I don't need it. She's like, take the check. I'm like, okay. I still got the check at the farm. And I apprehensively call my boss, Mike, and tell him, listen, I think I got to go to LA and try comedy. I think I'm being held, I think there's a calling and I got to go. And he said, Sean, as much as I hate losing you, I was an asset to him. And he said, but we all seen it, so go. They were all like, He's ready. He's truly ready for whatever's coming. So they supported me and he said, whatever you need. Everyone was like, whatever you need. And I got on the plane. And I was nervous because they all told me no one would believe my stories and that the shame, that a lot of, stuff that I probably wouldn't have to go through in my life right now. I'm doing it right now by putting myself out there to hopefully somebody will get a message out of it and some enjoyment out of it. So,
but that was the fear. That was what was the anxiety that you were feeling coming out to LA, that you're going to have to face all this stuff about making yourself vulnerable and sharing.
Yeah, but I knew if I opened up the can of worms, it was gonna be on.
Yeah.
I was gonna do the stage and I was gonna do it. And that's what I've done for the last 3.5 years. And I got to the airport, I got to LAX, and I got out. It was the evening. It was about 7 p.m. And I look around, and this guy pulls up, and I can't remember if I don't think I Ubered him. I think I tried to bribe him. I used to, you know what I mean? I'm like, hey, where you going? Here's $30. Can you take me to this hotel or to Hollywood? So the guy said, yeah. And I get in the back of his car, and he says, we strike up a small conversation. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I came to do comedy. And I just went into the last 3 years of my bits with this guy. And he was laughing all the way. And he was like, whoa. You know what I mean? I had him going. And he drops me off in Hollywood at my Airbnb. And he gets out of the car. And he says, listen. And he gets a piece of paper and he writes down on the paper, Hollywood comedy. This is your first stop. Go there and get on stage and pay $5. And that person was G. King, the comedian.
Yeah.
So, what are the odds of that?
So right out the gate.
Right out the gate, G. King's picking me up, and I'm all apprehensive. I don't even know where to start comedy. And that's the next day I went to Hollywood Comedy, and then it was on.
And you've been basically...
once I got on stage for the first time...
That was it?
That was it.
Yeah. And you said Adam Fink was there the first time you went.
Yeah, Adam was there, and there was some people there. There was Sam Ollerson was there. There was a few people that were just starting out who are all doing really good. Halligan, when I met Adam, Adam's doing, I'm so proud of him. You know what I mean? It's not easy being, because you got to leave people behind. You got to do what's right for you. And everyone needs to be good to themselves and be solid to themselves.
And you eventually found Fourth Wall. How did you find Fourth Wall?
I found Fourth Wall after some kissing frogs at other locations.
Yeah.
Okay, I kissed a few frogs that weren't good for me.
Yeah.
And but when I found Fourth Wall, I found structure. I found Joe Menente. I found almost a level of craziness, but quality and control at the same time.
Yeah.
It had everything I needed, and everything started on time, and everything, there was rules, and there was respect, and there was and then I, and I witnessed, certain things, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I just felt like I fit in.
Yeah.
I felt like I really fit in, and I was accepted with all my faults.
And you've been there ever since.
And I've been there ever since. Yeah, I come back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm on Block Island calling Joe saying, he's like, the 20th will be here before you know it, December 20th. So I am addicted to Fourth Wall.
And you're addicted to comedy. Yeah,
a lot of people say, why do you do so many mics or whatever? Hey, I don't recommend it for me, it works. Yeah. For me, it works, Because I'm only here to do one thing, and that's comedy. And then I go back to Block Island, and I have to be responsible and, and give back to my community.
And what do you think it is about comedy that just clicks with who you are?
Because I'm in control on the stage. I'm in control of my narrative on the stage. I'm in full control. And I don't have anybody telling me how to say it or do it or anything. And I'm very anxious. I'm very impatient. I'm so impatient I flush the toilet before I'm done peeing. That's how impatient I am. I'm a very impatient person. If anyone knows me, I like to go up first.
Yeah,
I don't want to go last.
Yeah.
I don't know who closes a show at 2:00. I mean, a headliner at 2:00 at the Fourth Wall. People take that a little too seriously.
Yeah. There are people that are looking for the
last spot.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that be a rider amongst every rider. Say hello to the guy next to you, especially if he's new. You know what I mean? Make him feel good, because comedy's a tough act.
Yeah,
it's tough to come into a room and, and I've seen people come and, I'm sure, I'm not speaking for Joe, but I'm sure he's seen them come and go. Yeah. But you see people who are all hot and excited for a couple of days, you never see them again. Yeah. Not while I'm here anyways. Yeah. So...
But tell me about the pain of that, because doing comedy, you're gonna get beat up.
Well, I've had to, for instance, Danny Mullen, loved Danny Mullen, but one time he was just fooling with me about me being a crackhead and all that, and I took real offense to it. So I feel like I can pull my scab off on stage, but you don't have the right to pull my scab off after I'm done.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I've been a little sensitive about that, but a lot of people have noticed it because they kind of gravitate to me and use me a little bit as bounce off or crowd work or whatever. Yeah. And for the most part, I was pretty easy with it, but I had to kind of put a kibosh on because it was affecting me. Yeah. Because I'm doing it for entertainment purposes. I've already gone through my payback, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, what is
and
it?
I got a lot of work to do. I'm still thin-skinned.
Yeah.
I don't do roast battles because I'm afraid I'll get in a fight.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm honest. You know what I mean? I don't drive in L.A. because I'm afraid of my CTE kicking in.
Yeah. But it's working for you, obviously. There's
It's
something
working.
about it.
Something's working.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I wake up every day and I say thank you for keeping me away from a drink or a drug today. I pay homage to my elders that are dead and the angels that carry me. And then I say, do the next best. And I suggest this for anybody. Wherever you're at in life, just do the next best thing in front of you. You may not know what that is. And you may keep running into walls and you're going to have to make decisions on whether to hop the fence or go around the fence or dig under the fence. But every time in life, just make the next best decision in front of you. And we all know, listen, if there's anything I know, that happiness is a byproduct of doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And if you're doing the right thing, you know it. And everybody else is going to know it because it's an electrical vibe. When you're doing the wrong thing, let's hypothetically say I chose to smoke crack before I do something in comedy. My vibe would be so off, not an overtired vibe from doing too many mics, but the vibe, it would be crushing, soul crushing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's something I don't want to gamble with.
Yeah. So for you, comedy is a big part of finding peace almost.
Yeah, but you got to go to hell before you get to heaven.
Yeah.
And I'm fine. It's like anything else. We're artists. And the one thing that I have come to terms with is maybe I did a lot of drugs because I wasn't allowed to be the artist I was.
Yeah.
I was an artist. I was an actor. I was an entertainer. You know what I mean? I had that little quality that maybe people liked, So,
and now you're getting to do it.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, it was your mom who kind of gave you she gave you her blessing. Maybe that's kind of what it was.
It was her. It was a blessing that had to come, and she was like, there was guilt on my mom's side of all the shit I did, you know what I mean? But I had to forgive her, and she forgave me.
Yeah.
So forgiveness is the key, is to be able to forgive and be forgiven.
Yeah.
How could you hold a grudge on somebody or not forgive somebody, with trespass against, forgiveness is the key. You may not want to forgive the person, but you don't want to carry that.
Yeah. Tell me, what are some of your goals like in the next couple of years with comedy? Like, because here's the thing, you've completely dedicated yourself to this, and I think maybe there's people outside of LA who, people in LA who know you, they know you as a comic who's who's really doing it, there's like young guys, they're not matching what you're doing, in terms of commitment, like showing up, being there, giving, every time you go up there, you're giving it everything you got. Like, you're not I've never seen you phone it in, Sean. I've never seen you do that. I don't think you know how to phone it in.
Remember, Bill Burr just came out with a new special about guys that are 57, 58 that are dropping dead.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great day on the course, and then my buddy just dropped dead. Listen, kids, my next mic, I could roll a 7. You know what I mean? So I want to live the best life, and if I want to give it, there's this Rolling Stones song that says, if I could take my hand in my heart, suicide right on stage, would it be enough for your cheating heart? Would it help to ease your pain, ease your pain? Meaning it's about when you go on stage, I leave it all out there. Unless I'm having a bad day.
Do you think everybody who knows you, who really knows you, is from like Block Island, from Rhode Island, understands this comedy thing, or are they confused by it?
Anyone who really knows me, they know
Yeah.
what day it is in my world. And listen, comedy's like anything else. It's one day I could wake up and not want to do it. And I'm giving myself the freedom to say, hey, I'm not locked into comedy.
But every day you wake up and you want to do it.
Every day I want to do it. And every night I go to bed and I go over every night I go to bed. Well, here's where my career's at. I'm a dreamer.
Yeah.
So every night I go to bed and I put on Every Day is a Winding Road.
of all songs, that's what
right?
you go with.
And then I think of me walking
Yeah,
into
yeah.
the Providence Performing Arts Center to all my family and friends in Providence to that song. And I want my people that are in recovery that have 1 day to 10 years over on the left. I want all my friends that are still using drugs and alcohol, I want them on my right. And every day is a winding road as I approach the stage. And I tell the guys on the left, stay away from the guys on the right. And the guys on the right, stay away from the guys on the left. And if you both want to do a switch, one at a time. We'll get one sober, one back on, one back off. And then, you know, like I'm a dreamer. I want to go and perform in front of all my friends and family. Like when I was a kid, I had dreams of me being Evel Knievel and pulling up to the schoolyard in a red, white, and blue cape and showing off. It's that ham in me. It's the ham. It's the need to, which is great because my ideas are really good. So if I can get the Providence Performing Arts Center at some point in my life, which is a dream of mine, that song will play and I will walk into that situation with sober people on the left and people who are still drinking on the right. That's my goal.
That's a great goal. Yeah.
And I want to teach the sober, you know, I want to pass a message because my mother, you know, it's all about a message. And I owe, not that I owe California. I owe Block Island. I owe my community. And they know that I've given back. I talk so much shit about crack and everything on the street, but everyone knows what the real deal is.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, is there anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No.
Yeah.
How about toothpicks for your eyes? I know you're Japanese.
I can't help it.
Listen, kids, don't take slanted for granted, okay? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I can say that.
Yeah. I like the part where you're like, what was it? So I opened a mulch business and then I sold it to some Mexican.
I did. You ain't lived until you sold a mulch business to some Mexicans. That's living. That is.
It'd be funny if he was like,
I gave him a case of Modelo too. Yeah. Yeah. They were like, oh, yeah, these guys are great. I used to hang out at the Home Depot.
Yeah.
Because I used to hire all those guys.
Yeah.
I used to pick up jobs, pick up like 5 or 6 guys.
Dude, wherever you go, Sean, you find a way to just kind of find your niche.
Buddy Cianci.
Yeah.
I give it all to Buddy. Yeah. Buddy taught me how to be a politician. Yeah. But he taught me how to be a politician in life. Yeah. He taught me how to be respectful. Yeah. The toe you step on today may be connected to the ass you'll have to kiss tomorrow. Yeah. Number 2. 3, treat everybody the same, you know, until they come at you. Yeah. Till you see the whites, don't shoot them until you see the whites of their eyes. Don't just start shooting. Yeah. I don't mean with a gun. I mean with whatever. Yeah. And I learned a lot through this journey. I've learned a lot. I'm very blessed. Grateful to be here with you. Yeah. You know? No, same, Sean. I love you guys. You know how much I love you. There's a lot of love for Sean. You know, in LA and Block Island, Rhode Island, I think there's something about you, Sean. There's an earnestness, there's an honesty, a truthfulness, but there's also there's a sweetness too. You know what I mean? And you've told me a lot, like, you know, 15 years ago, oh my God, like in this situation, this is who I would have been. Yeah. You know, I was angry. Yeah. And you know, I also thank God for lifting the anger. Yeah. And now, you know what I mean? You know, what can I say? It's the third act. Yeah. It's the third act. And I don't want to, you know, I want to make sure that I give you my best. Yeah. The world is my show. When I show up at 7-Eleven, I want to give you my best. If the lady in line's having a bad day, I'm going to know about it, and I'm going to tell her what a quality dress you got. And I'm going to change her day. And she's going to look at me and go, thank you. And I'm going to go, no, thank you. You know? And I think that, you know, it sounds like bullshit, but when you're genuine, it flows like wine. All right, Sean. I'm glad we did this. All right. You know, I know there's probably a lot that we didn't get to cover, but it kind of took its own course, you know? Sure. And I think that's sort of what this was really about, maybe. Mm. And there's no way to know exactly what it was supposed to be until we did it. Yeah. You know? And I think there's no guarantees in life.
Yeah.
My mother used to say to me, Sean, I'd be like, Mom, am I going to be able to come back to that? She'd be like, Sean, there's no guarantees I'm going to be here. There's no guarantee anything's going to be here. And there's no guarantees in life. So, I can only say, and to end it with this, is be grateful, stay vigilant, be kind, and do something nice for somebody. You know what I mean? When you don't want to do it, that's when you do it. And that's all.
All right.
All right, dude. Hey.
We did it. Hey.
Yeah.
I'm glad we
What
did
a pleasure, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
Sean.
right.